welcome to this explainer. We're unpacking the massive, incredibly complex, and honestly pretty paradoxical world of Indian agriculture. Today, we're going to look at some incredible numbers, some stark realities, and ultimately the future of exactly how a massive nation feeds itself. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with agriculture as India's economic backbone, look at production trends, dive into the productivity problem, examine the ecosystem impact, and finally, map out the path to sustainable agriculture. Let's get right into it. So, Section 1, India's economic backbone. Just to make sure we're all on the exact same page, let's look at the word agriculture. It comes from agri, meaning field, and culture, meaning cultivation. It is literally the art and science of producing crops and raising livestock. It all starts right here in the dirt, serving as the absolute foundation for every other product in the primary sector. Now wrap your head around this number, 42.1%. That is the share of the entire Indian workforce employed in agriculture. I mean, nearly half of the working population in one of the most populated countries on Earth relies directly on the fields for their livelihood. It's undeniable. This sector is the backbone of the country. But as we're going to see, it's a backbone that's really starting to bend under the pressure. And it's not just about growing food for people, though obviously feeding a massive, expanding population is huge. It also means providing fodder for roughly 42 crore, that's 420 million cattle. Plus, agriculture fuels massive industries, supplying crucial raw materials for everything from cotton textiles to sugar. It's this giant, interconnected web that touches literally every single part of the economy. All right, moving on to Section 2, Trends in Production. This right here, this is a monumental triumph. Back in 1950, total food grain production was hovering around 50.8 million tons. Fast forward to 2022-23, and boom, it explodes to 330.5 million tons. We're talking about a multi-fold increase, over 6 times the original output. Over a few decades, India flipped the script from being a historically food-scarce country leaning heavily on imports to a confident food surplus nation. That is absolutely huge. But that brings us to Section 3, the productivity problem. Okay, so the national totals are amazing, right? But underneath that, the reality is actually pretty stark. Take wheat yield per hectare. In India, it sits at 3,216 kilograms. But if you look over at China, they're getting 6,744 kilograms per hectare. So an Indian hectare is producing less than half the wheat of a Chinese hectare. It's a classic paradox. India produces a staggering amount of food overall, but does it highly inefficiently, getting much less out of every single patch of land than its peers. So what's driving this productivity gap? Well, it essentially boils down to 3 things. First up is just massive population pressure. The population boomed, meaning the per capita land available shrank drastically, going from 0.43 down to just 0.143 hectares. Second, we have institutional hurdles. Most landholdings are incredibly tiny, mostly under 2 hectares, and super fragmented, which makes large-scale modern farming almost impossible. And finally, the technological gaps. With only 40% of the land properly irrigated, farming is famously known as a gamble of monsoons. Throw in a lack of high-quality seeds and poor financing, and you can see exactly why productivity is so stunted.
Which leads us right into Section 4, Impact on the Ecosystem.
Now we have to pause and ask a really tough question. We've pushed so hard for survival and expansion, but at what cost to the environment? Because this aggressive pursuit of short-term food security, it's triggered a serious, long-term ecological crisis. Before we look at the damage, let's remind ourselves what an ecosystem actually is. It's this delicate geographical region where living things, the biotic parts, like plants and animals, interact seamlessly with the non-living, abiotic landscape. It's a fine-tuned balance regulating life itself. And when you aggressively disrupt that balance, well, things go sideways fast. The first huge red flag we're seeing is desertification. Now, this isn't just an academic buzzword. It's the literal washing away of the Earth's fertile topsoil. Thanks to relentless overcultivation, severe deforestation to clear more land, and overgrazing by millions of cattle, the soil is completely stripped of its essential nutrients. It degrades physically until it's just barren land. And sadly, it's a domino effect. Massive hydroelectric dams, like Sardar Sarovar, which were built to secure farming water, end up submerging forests and displacing wildlife. Then you have the topsoil issue. Constant tillage and overgrazing turn once stable dirt into loose mud that just washes right away. And let's not forget the desperate, indiscriminate use of synthetic chemicals. We're pumping fertilizers into the ground that end up poisoning groundwater and totally disrupting aquatic ecosystems. We're essentially destroying the land and water we absolutely need to survive.
But there is a way forward. Section 5. Path to Sustainable Agriculture.
To stop this seemingly irreparable loss, the strategy is finally shifting. The focus now? Conserving forests and wildlife. We're also seeing a massive push for alternate cropping. The idea is to encourage farmers to shift away from those soil-draining, intensive paddy and wheat cycles and lean more into horticulture. Plus, there's a crucial pivot happening away from ecosystem-destroying megadams and toward eco-friendly mini-hydro projects. It's all about promoting a truly sustainable, balanced approach.
And arguably the biggest piece of this puzzle is the shift to organic farming. Think of it as a step-by-step return to traditional wisdom. Step 1, ditch the synthetic chemicals and swap them for natural inputs like compost and animal manure. Step 2, stop obsessing over short-term plant growth and focus on long-term soil health. Step 3 is all about rigorous water conservation, using natural irrigation and mulching. And Step 4, actually allowing local biodiversity to recover and thrive right alongside the agriculture.
When you really think about these long-term sustainable processes, it forces us to face the true hidden cost of our food, which leaves us with this incredible, provocative question. Can looking backward at traditional farming methods actually be the only viable way to secure our ecosystem's future? It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? To feed the billions of tomorrow, we might literally need to farm like we did yesterday. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I hope you're walking away with a much deeper understanding of India's bending, but hopefully unbroken economic backbone.